Hello, hello, and welcome to the Humanity of Sales, where purpose meets profit. I'm back and I've got another incredible guest for you today. I can't wait to introduce you to Carlee Wolfe. But before we get there, I want to ask you something. How are you doing? No, seriously, like I want to know how you are doing. When we talk about the humanity of sales, it's really about that human to human interaction. Today, we are going to be talking about people first leadership, people first. So I want to start with you. I want you to think about like, where are you? How are you feeling energetically? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling productive? Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling some angst? Are you feeling confused? Are you feeling like you need more? What is it? If there's anything that you need today, I'd love to continue the conversation. Please feel free to reach out to me, Heather at heatherhansenoneil.com. You can touch base with me in LinkedIn. Of course, subscribe here to the channel. You can definitely add your comments here as well. I've got incredible guests, and I want to share their messages with you, but I also want it to be a dialogue. So let me know. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know what you're looking for. If you are like, I want to learn more about this, I'll go find you a guest that can fill that need if I can't. Okay? Is that a deal? All right. So, are you ready? Are you ready for another incredible show? Well, let me share with you. Today we've got Carlee Wolfe, who is a global talent management leader and coach with more than 20 years of experience helping organizations align purpose and performance. She has led transformation and culture work at brands including Under Armour, Hyatt Hotels, Apollo Education Group, and the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. Beyond corporate leadership, Carlee has spent nearly 2 decades coaching volleyball, including athletes in pursuit of the Paralympic Games, and serves on nonprofit boards and city commissions to expand access to recreation, leadership, and workforce opportunities. She brings this people-first approach to leadership, believing that when you invest in your people, that your impact multiplies across business and community. Can you see already why I decided to invite her on? Yes, a big welcome to Carlee Wolfe. You're going to love her. So let's bring her on now. Carlee Wolfe, how are you today?
I'm very, very good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I am so impressed by all the things that you've done, your bio, and where you focus when it comes to leadership. So it's completely in alignment with what we do here at the Humanity of Sales, where purpose meets profit. So let's dive in first into that people first leadership. So why do you think that purpose-driven leadership is the real driver of profit and engagement?
Yeah. I think purpose-driven leadership really kind of gets us to the core of what are we all trying to accomplish together? And
Mhm.
that to me is the intersection of the power of leadership, how do we then connect on the human level and drive performance together? And then the sales part of it, which is what are the results we're all trying to achieve? And if we start with purpose, we have authenticity, we have greater sense of self, which helps us to connect with others. That includes folks on our team as well as our customers. And so really having that purpose, I think is foundational, and it is the part that we can also have control of, influence over, and brings us sort of that joy and fulfillment in our roles that I think often gets lost anytime we're sort of thinking about driving performance. So that's at the core why I think that that's so important.
I agree with you. I mean, sometimes we just think, oh, we're just gonna write down the thing and just keep moving forward and just focus on the performance. But when you really sit and think and feel and act upon that true purpose, it's passion focused, and you're implementing something that means something every day. And there's a lot of power in that. Now, I know that
Yeah.
you've built talent and transformation programs at major global brands. So I don't know if you can name names, you don't have to name names, but if you have a good story of what you've seen happen where some of these groups put people first, do you have any of those?
Absolutely. And I'm happy to give a corporate example. I also wanted to give maybe something that's relatable to a lot of folks, which is also sports. So,
Yes.
while not a big corporate brand, I started my career at the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. I also worked at USA Volleyball, and today I coach and still support an adaptive sport, specifically sitting volleyball. So, I'd encourage people to check this out. It's a really cool sport. But I go here because I think sport is the ultimate example of having purpose, or one of the easy examples of having purpose and bringing folks in. And so when you think about elite performance, Paralympics, Olympics, what these athletes are striving for, or I guess even if you think about your sand volleyball team, right, you're wanting to win. What is our purpose? Our team is objectively trying to win something. But also, once we get into elite sports, it's also about the point. Every point matters, every play matters. And each of those has a purpose. Maybe it's a purpose of how I'm in volleyball serving the ball against the opponent that we've scouted. Maybe it's about a offensive play that we're running or a defensive play that we're running because we understand the objective and the purpose of why we're delivering. And I give that because I think in work, sometimes we overcomplicate what is purpose or what is a goal or an outcome and rally people around it. But at the end of the day, it's really at the core understanding what metaphorically we're delivering on the court. Where are we headed together, both in big ways, win the game, and in small ways, win the point, defend the ball. So that's sort of like my sport related piece.
Yeah.
But in a corporate sense, I can share I used to work at Under Armour and purpose is very real there. Ultimately, Under Armour is a retailer, but the purpose is about making athletes better, creating wear, like shoes, shirts, etc., that help people perform better in whatever space that is. Whether that's I'm going to my yoga class, I'm recreational, I'm just trying to stay healthy, to that elite performer. And when I was working there, one of the big things we were doing was shifting our operating model, which included everything from idea conception of an idea, like, hey, this really the shoe that we want to bring to market, all the way to your consumer, like you purchased the shoe and it's now in your hands. And we're talking about purpose here, and I think one of the things at the time when I say operating model change, it was really about rewiring to say, how do handoffs happen at each stage?
Yeah.
And that's a tough one because every leader in the organization had to change, had to think about how do I work differently? How do I work differently with my partner? And purpose really came around of to say, hey, our athletes, in other words, our customers, consumers, are looking for more from us. How do we deliver on that more? And that became really the anchor for that entire change. And that was, and when I say anchor, purpose creates language, purpose creates connection, purpose creates understanding of objectives and goals, which people can rally behind. And
Mhm.
so that would be an example of, we'll call it like change at scale, but leading with purpose, which included results. So just kind of two examples, maybe one more fun, a fun one and maybe a corporate one, but definitely brands that folks would recognize.
Okay, so these are great because I love a good story and stories are
Yes.
what draw us in, right? And I like having variety in the stories. Now, I'm going to come back. I reserve the right to come back
Always.
to the athlete side because you'll understand in a moment it's part of my DNA. But while we're on this with kind of that culture and strategy, let's look a little bit more at what do you believe that leaders may overlook when trying to align that culture and strategy?
I One of the pieces I believe that leaders overlook a lot is themselves. Like really
Mhm.
understanding self, the things that they value, how that plays into where the organization is headed, where their team is headed, and that value of authenticity. Like people can tell when a leader is being authentic or themselves or bringing their passions to the broader objective of what the company is trying to do versus I'll use an extreme example, like read this script. And I think that is, I don't know if it's overlooked because there's maybe discomfort in looking at self. Maybe it's overlooked when you think about big companies, and I've seen this a lot in corporate environments where the comms team writes your talking points. And so then you have your talking points. Can I vary from the talking points? Can I add my own personality? What does that look like? I want to do the right thing. So maybe
Mhm.
it's pressure. Um, maybe it's uncomfortability in leading change these are examples, but I think start with self. Start with self. Who are you? What do you value? And how does that come into wherever you're leading that team? And part of leading the team is also understanding how you and your purpose and your values fit in context with the team, and also bringing that out from folks on your team.
Mm. Yeah, you're hitting on some really important points. And you mentioned how you can see it when somebody is passionate and aligned and authentic, but you can also see it, right, when they're not. Like you can feel it from a mile away, right?
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I when I was early in my career, that was one of the things that I got a lot of, I'll call it like storytelling from, like
Mhm.
leaders that I really admired and wanted to learn from. And I would ask them like, where did you get the confidence to, or not even confidence, like, how did you get this good? I think was like the question that I would ask.
Yeah, yeah.
And the answer I got was, usually a lot of I had to like figure out who I was and who I wanted to be and be confident in that, and working for people and environments that allowed me to tap into that space for myself. And I think that that was really powerful lessons that I learned early in my career. I think I took that advice and was figuring it out. I'm still figuring it out today. And so maybe that's also um, if we're taking that moment of appreciation and the question that you asked me before of like where to start, and I was saying, maybe there's different reasons why people don't be themselves, maybe because you're still figuring it out, or maybe your environment isn't supportive. So maybe then the question is, well, where can you start to take a step? Like,
Yeah.
where can you begin? What can you learn? Because we are also, my point being is we're all in the pursuit. We're all learning. We're all figuring it out. And so it'll never be perfect. But as long as you're tapping into self and learning and reflecting, I think we're all better off.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and you said something that I think really fits into that. There's two different parts that you're talking about. You're talking about really knowing who you are, and in the journey, we don't right away. No, we're
Yes.
finding our voice. We're finding our values and our mission and all of that along the path because we don't just stop and figure it all out and then start, right? So that's part of it is taking the time to learn for ourselves. But you also
Yeah.
said the word allowing. Go ahead, Carlee.
Well, I was gonna say, can I touch on that? Because I think it's
Yeah.
super interesting. I just this week went to a session. It was about humanity at work and how do we like bring this back, especially as work is changing and evolving. And it was one of those times where there were three speakers. It was a three-person panel, and they were sharing who they were in their career. And what I found so fascinating, what I appreciated so much this week is that they went through a little bit of their career journey, but they also talked about like where they found themselves, the leaders that supported them in that, also the times that maybe it didn't feel comfortable, and even times when it wasn't aligned, like things weren't working as well. And I have to tell you, I followed up with them after, when we were on break, and I said, I was like, I really appreciate you sharing your full story because sometimes when we come to learn, like at a conference or an event, people position themselves or share the story of the shined object, which
Yeah.
we can all present. Today, I'm a shined object. Where you and I are talking
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
space, but to, although I hope we're unshined, we're also diving deeper. So maybe I
Yeah.
don't want to be a
Yeah.
shined object. But, right, how do we present? I think in those cases, we unintentionally just present where we have are landed today versus the journey that got us there. And it's those moments that we are learning about ourselves, that we are getting to know each other, that can be tough in the moment, but propel us forward. And so maybe the question here is, so one, I appreciate those speakers this week for their authenticity because we don't always get to see that. But two, as you and I are chatting, and I think about the folks that are listening, like maybe that's a future looking question or of inspiration. If you're on a panel somewhere, maybe you're at a sales conference and you're talking about your leader journey, what do you want to celebrate, but also what do you want to share that you worked through? Because what
Mhm.
you worked through is what got you there and in that moment of why people are also there celebrating you on stage.
Yeah. So I had to learn this kind of the hard way, to be honest, because I was taught as I was learning. So I've had my business for like 900 years. So way back in the day when
900 years ago.
oh yeah, like 900 years ago, I thought things had to be perfect. Like from the stage, it had to be, the tonality, the gestures, the messaging, the everything had to be perfect. And I didn't start really connecting with my audience until I started showing my flaws.
Mhm.
the mistakes that I made, the failures, the crying on the floor. Like this is what drew people to me. And it was such an eye opener. I'm like, wow, that's what breaks down the walls because none of us are perfect.
Yes.
All right. And then you don't feel a connection to somebody who pretends that they are.
Yeah. No. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not the human experience.
Exactly. This is about humanity. Yes, 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 and yes. So, real quickly before we move back into the athlete thing, one of the things that I'm thinking about is you mentioned the word allowing, and so that's part of the culture, I think. And what I meant was that I think you phrased it like if you're in an environment that allows you to be
Mhm.
you. Um, there are some organizations that don't allow for the
Yeah.
mistakes. They don't allow for the failure. And when you have a culture that encourages you to try things and that you don't have to be perfect and that's how we learn and that's how you get next level results
Yes.
is by doing things without the fear of the failure, right?
Yes.
And so I think that there's a way that we can communicate that and create it as this is part of our process, this is part of our culture, and how can that person communicate their what they that leader communicate who they are to that person who may be writing the scripts and vice versa, so it's
Yes.
not there's not a disconnect. So because you have more experience in that area, what do you think about that, and do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I think, depending on the level and size organization or we'll actually use the term culture because that's kind of where you're at. I think there is sort of these healthy tensions between what is the company needing from me and then
Mm-hmm.
also like where do I show up as a leader. I think you and I are speaking in a space where it's hopefully that there's the lightest tension, which is that I can be my full self. But
Mm-hmm.
perhaps there are moments, right? Maybe I'm speaking publicly on the company, of which then there are some things that I need to be mindful of, just largely because, especially if you work for a public company, right, you have, to manage that. So that would be like an extreme example, but I think I just want to show all, when I say a healthy tension, what that means and how that plays out. But hopefully we're all in spaces where we are supported to be ourselves, to bring ourselves, to have that autonomy to, we'll use that word, be allowed,
Yeah.
to be ourselves. So I think there's maybe like two things I'd be thinking about is one, as a leader, we've already talked about like what I can do to bring my best self. I think the next question then is what can I do to create the environment where others can also bring their best selves? And I think about as you're position asking that question, I was putting myself in the place and I'd encourage others to as well, whether you're in it or have been in it. I think of the times where I'll use the term micromanaged or like sort of like held to like not being allowed to be self,
Mm-hmm.
the stress that comes with that. Like, am I doing what this other person wants to do? Am I catching up with what they think they're thinking, that they think their boss is thinking? Like,
Right.
who wants to work in that manner? Because you're thinking about the thinking versus what does my customer need? What does
Right.
my team need? What can I bring value to? Like, just think about what I just said of the time of where you're spending in those two scenarios. And
Mm-hmm.
so even if you're in a space where you're leading a group or maybe you're having some stronger tensions that you're having to manage, maybe more expectation of where you're sitting, what can you do to safeguard, if you will, and still facilitate the environment for your team to thrive, to be challenged, to be able to bring themselves to work? And then, by the way, how do you celebrate those successes, tell the stories, and be a part of also the positive culture moving forward?
Yeah.
But then, Heather, there's also a question too of like, how much are you pushing against that? And I do think this is where people also get in the point of their career where, am I a fit? Is this where I'm thriving? Is this where I'm getting the most out of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I feel in the air that there with my clients with other people out there, stories that I hear, that there's a lot of that evaluating, is this the right fit? Maybe it was the right fit in the past. Have I grown in a different direction? And so I think it's important to look at that so that we
I
stay
agree.
true to ourselves and still honor what the company needs. And so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I
by the way, there's a lot of ways to examine that question. I think sometimes when people are exploring, is this still the fit? We automatically assume, then does that mean I'm going to another company? And
Right.
I think fulfillment and understanding self and bringing self, we'll just now call it to your life, which is ultimately fulfilling and still, I think, facilitates like a great place to be when you come to work is if I'm not getting something here, can I get it somewhere else? Am I
Yeah.
volunteering? Am I engaging with like my kids
Mhm.
differently? Am I serving on a nonprofit board? Am I signed up for a sport that I enjoy? Right. By the way, I'm not saying this is not a Band-Aid fix sort of recommendation. This is more of a exploration of self of like, am I being fulfilled? And are there things that I can, gain in other spaces? So I just wanted to open up that aperture because
Mhm.
like I said, I talk with a lot of folks, including my friends and family, and I think there always is this assumptive of I need to go somewhere else
Yeah.
when there are other ways, I think, to answer that question.
Yeah, those are really good points. Sometimes we tend to go, we swing the pendulum, right? And we go like the far extreme from where we are to solve the problem. And a friend of mine used this term. She's like, Heather, you're walking around the whole neighborhood. Maybe you just need to look next door. And I'm like,
Yep.
ooh, I like that. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, really cool. So, I am an athlete, an adventurer, a peak performer, and I work with people who are athletes, adventurers, peak performers, and I believe that there is a specific mindset that correlates between them, right?
Mm,
So some of the things that they're willing to do. There's resilience, there's curiosity, there's um, going over and above, looking deep. There's passion. There's a lot that
yes.
you can find that correlates between peak performers, adventurers, and athletes. So what are your
Yes.
thoughts on that? And what are some tips where people who may not consider themselves those things naturally, but maybe they can move into some of those qualities that can help them succeed?
Yeah. Love the question. Love all the framing that you put in there. I would perhaps add a couple of differentiators in that space.
Okay.
One, we've been kind of rallying around today, purpose, sense of purpose. I know why I exist and what I'm going after. And it's not just linear in that I have to be an athlete. It's
Right.
sort of more like what type of athlete, where am I growing, how am I evolving? I think pursuit. So in the continued pursuit of learning, pursuit of growth, pursuit through failures, pursuit and celebration, all I think pursuit just being a huge one with that. And
Yeah.
then I think also understanding of whole self.
Mm.
Elite athletes in this case, or I'll even say elite performers at work, I think really understand themselves. Here's the value I bring. Here's who I am. Here's how I stay balanced and healthy in my life. I build relationships that are meaningful, that matter. I make time, space, and capacity to rest, to recharge. It is holistic, the person and what they bring and what they do. Because on the athletic sense, if I'm not creating space to rest, if I'm not clear on the things I'm working on, if I'm not connected to others, I'm going to have burnout, in that case, maybe injury. I'm not going to be growing as much as I can. Therefore, the competitor, the person waiting behind me to take my seat off the bench, or even my competition starts to win. And I think that same thing is true at work. If I'm not taking the time I need, I'm probably cranky at work or not thinking in the best way possible. If I'm
Mhm.
not bringing myself or understanding self, I probably feel misaligned. If I'm not understanding the pursuit or the goal that I'm working on, I'm probably delivering products, services, or perceived value that aren't as impactful as I can be. So I think those are definitely some differences. But I intentionally share the athlete in the corporate side because while different perhaps arenas, we'll say, and sport is maybe in a large way of looking at performance or a bigger way of looking at performance. I think there are so many similarities.
So many.
I believe the more people at work that can think about these things, mind, body, health, sense of self, the better they can also do in their jobs.
Yeah, I definitely agree and love those additional nuances that you pulled out because they're all incredibly important. And this is flying by. I can't believe it. But I need to
Oh,
ask your
yes.
opinion about the future of work. Where do you think we're going? How do you recommend that people maybe infuse just a little bit more of that humanity moving forward?
I'm so glad you asked this question, and perhaps this is a double down of where we just left. I
Yeah.
think keeping whole self in mind. I
Hmm.
think the future of work is disruptive. I think it's amazing. I think it's exciting. I think it's also how do we do it intentionally so that we stay human focused? This is an easy space where ooh, shiny object, ooh, make things quicker and faster and easier. But what are we doing to be intentional about bringing the person along and keeping the person included? But I'm going to close with total sense of self. How are we taking care of ourselves? How are we taking care of others? How are you staying centered in the things that you value and that you're adding value to?
Hmm.
Because that's, I think, where we continue to build a human space in a human world. But more importantly, what you and I have been talking about, it keeps us happy, healthy, fulfilled, and the best performers that we can be in what we're delivering. So that's where I would go with it.
Oh, Carly, I got to say, thank you so much. Listeners, don't you agree that this, like, Carlee Wolfe is what we're talking about when we talk about the humanity of sales, where purpose meets profit. She's living it, she understands it, she's given you great suggestions today. If you love them, share this out with others who can use this inspired way of looking at the humanity, not just of sales, of leadership, within our lives. It's all tied together. So Carlee, thank you again for bringing your wisdom and your inspiration and your energy today.
Yes.
And is there any way that you would like anyone to get in contact with you?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, happy to connect with folks. It's an easy follow, but I do take messages if people need anything. So I appreciate the opportunity to share that. And I do hope to hear from folks.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I encourage you to check out Carlee Wolfe and to keep coming back. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our amazing guests.